Romans chapter 3, verses 1 through 8. In this passage, Paul is addressing the idea that who we are as humans affects God. So can our imperfections, our flaws, our mistakes affect who God is? Some people judge God based on their interactions with people who claim to know God. They'll look at certain people and they'll say, man, I don't like your God because of the way that you act, which really, in all fairness, isn't fair at all. Would you like to be judged by someone else's actions and thoughts just because they say they know you? The truth is, you and I, we're human and we mess up. Yes, we're followers of Jesus Christ, but we can really screw it up sometimes, and other people look at that and they think, hey, I don't want to know your God because I don't really like you. But the truth of the matter is, what you and I do, our screw-ups, our mistakes, they don't affect God in any way, shape, or form. When we screw up, when we do something wrong, it doesn't change who He is. The Bible even makes it clear by saying that when you and I are unfaithful, God still remains faithful because He can't be anything than what He is. And God is faithful. God is love. So He can't be anything but love. Now, you and I, that's a different story. This is why it's so important for you to know God for yourself. Because if you don't know Him for yourself, how are you going to know when somebody's representing Him wrong? So, what misconceptions do you have about God? And how do you even know that you're thinking the wrong things? You know, a lot of us grow up and maybe it's our parents or our grandparents. They went to church, they had all the traditions, the Christmas Eve services, the Easter morning, maybe communion, all these different things that are traditions that your family did, even bowing their head and praying before dinner. And maybe that's what you do with your family, and that's as far as your relationship with God goes. And everything is based off of everyone else's experiences of God. Maybe you hear stories at church and you hear testimonies, or you hear people at work that talk about the great things that God's doing, and you think, man, God's great, but you don't know that firsthand. Can you imagine being married to someone when the only experience that you had, the only knowledge you had of them was what other people came and told you about them? That would be insanity. Yet we do that same thing with God. We are giving our entire lives over to Him, and yet we're satisfied to not really know Him? So there was a newlywed couple, and the bride was making her husband dinner, and she was making this beautiful roast. She gets it out, she's preparing it, she takes out her knife, and she hacks off the bottom side of it, and she throws it away. And her husband looks at her and goes, "What the heck are you doing?" And she's like, "I don't know, it's the way you make it." He's like, "Who taught you that?" She said, "Well, my mother did." So she calls her mom, and she says, "Mom, tell me, why did you cut the bottom of the roast off before you cook it every time?" And she says, "Well, gosh, I don't know. That's just what Grandma always did." So then she calls her mom and she says, "Mom, we need to know, why did you always cut off the bottom of the roast before you cooked it?" And Grandma answers and says, "Well, because my pan was too small." So how much of God are you throwing away because you're living your life based on assumptions, traditions, and the experiences of others? The only way to experience the fullness of a relationship with God is to invest some time and energy into that relationship. And you know what? God wants to be known, so this isn't difficult, but it is going to take some work. Any good relationship does, right? So just some real quick tips. You need to start talking to God. Just talk to Him. You can talk out loud, you can talk in your head, He knows your thoughts, but just acknowledge that you are speaking to God. Now, talking is super important, especially in a day and age where we're always on our phones. Not too long ago, my son and I were out at dinner, and I was laughing because next to us, this table across from us, there was this couple, and you could tell they were on a first-ish date. And I looked over and I said to my son, here's what not to do, because they first were both on their phones. No one's talking. Then she put her phone down and I watched as she's literally staring at this guy, waiting for him to put his phone down so that she can talk to him. And so then she starts giggling because I'm sure she's thinking to herself, this is stupid. And I'm looking at my son who's 16 and I'm like, dude, don't do this. Learn from this guy. He is so clueless. Finally, she's looking down, he looks up, kind of sees her, totally not interested, bored out of her mind, and so he puts his phone down. And then they just start looking around the room, and they weren't talking. Do you think that relationship is going to go anywhere? I'm guessing not. So let's learn from, Joe and Susie over there who did it wrong. When it comes to God, He wants you to talk to Him and He wants to speak to you. So let's put our phones down, let's get in the Word, let's listen to Him, let's talk to Him. Make sure you're listening. And how the heck are you supposed to know if it's God's voice or not? Well, that's where the Bible comes in. So make sure you're getting in the Bible, because that's how you're going to learn the voice of God. Hey, thanks for watching. Make sure you hit subscribe and come back as we continue to dig into the Word and see what else Paul has to say.